Hello students, and welcome to this brief social studies presentation. Before we get started, I just want to remind us of a few good note-taking tips so that we can get through this presentation in one piece. Remember, you want to be listening to what I'm saying and also watching what is on the slides, because not everything I am saying is going to be on there, so make sure you're listening carefully, and then make sure you are summarizing what you hear in your own words, taking only the most important things that I say. So let's get started here. Today we're going to be talking about our final Mesoamerican civilization, and arguably one of the most powerful pre-Columbian civilizations there were in the New World at this time. So we're talking about the Aztecs. But before we can actually get to the Aztecs, we have to talk about their predecessors. A predecessor simply means a person or people who came before another group. The predecessors of the Aztecs were the Mexica. Throughout the 13th century, or the 1200s, the Mexica were a small group of people that migrated from the north of Mexico into what we know today as the southern Mexican basin, essentially where Mexico City is today. So they were migrating through this area looking for a place to live, and we're talking a couple hundred miles west of the Yucatan Peninsula, which is where the Olmecs and the Mayans settled several hundred years earlier. So for decades, the Mexica were traveling throughout Mexico looking for a home. But this was made difficult because, unfortunately, there were many different cultures present in Mexico at this time, and they really didn't get along with the Mexica all that much. Part of the reason for this is the fact that the Mexica practiced ritual sacrifice and would sacrifice their neighbors to their own gods. So essentially, the Mexica would come through a certain area and go up to their neighbors and essentially sacrifice them, or to take their lives for the gods. They would kill their neighbors, and in doing so, they thought this would make the gods happy. As you could imagine, whether or not the gods were happy, the neighbors were not happy, and as a result, the Mexica had trouble finding a home. In fact, some of these methods were pretty brutal. You could see a picture on your screen here of a Mexica wearing the flayed skin of a conquered warrior. So pretty brutal, and understandably so. The other cultures in Mexico at this time really didn't want the Mexica around. Luckily for the Mexica, in 1323, the leaders of the Mexica had a vision of an eagle sitting on a cactus, eating a snake on a lake. I know, it sounds a little bit like a Dr. Seuss rhyme, but this is what they saw in their vision, and they felt like where this happened is where they should settle and where they should find their home. So for 2 years, they traveled through Mexico looking for where this image happened. This image you can see on the top right-hand portion of your screen. I know, sort of Dr. Seuss-like, eagle, snake, cactus, lake, but this is what they saw. And ultimately, in 1325, they found where this image took place. It was on a small island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, a name that you definitely want to know, Lake Texcoco. And the island they would settle on, they ultimately built their capital city of Tenochtitlan. You don't have to know how to spell Tenochtitlan. It's got a lot of consonants in there, but you should be able to identify Tenochtitlan as the capital of Aztec civilization, and it is on the middle. It is in the middle of Lake Texcoco. That vision of that eagle eating a snake on a cactus in the lake is actually super important for Mexican culture today. In fact, it's so important that it's made its way onto the Mexican national flag, and you can see it there in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So the Mexica, now the Aztecs, have finally found a home on Lake Texcoco in the city of Tenochtitlan, and within a few short years, Tenochtitlan becomes the most advanced and populous city in the New World, with over 200,000 people living on its 5 square miles of island. Because it is an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, the Aztecs had to build 3 causeways, or roads over water, that led to the city. So that should tell us as historians that the Aztecs were very, very advanced in the fact that they could build these roadways across the water. We also know that the Aztecs built stone aqueducts. Those of you who have studied Rome know that an aqueduct brings fresh water to a place, and in this case, these stone aqueducts brought fresh water to the city of Tenochtitlan, another major innovation. Unfortunately, where the Aztecs settled in the southern Mexican basin, the climate is very dry with very little rainfall, so the ground is not very fertile. It's not great for farming in some areas, and Tenochtitlan is no exception. The Aztecs knew they had to farm, just like we know farming is super important for civilizations. As a result, the Aztecs developed something that they called chinampas. Chinampas are floating gardens, and they're pictured on the right-hand side of your screen. Essentially, what they were gardens or little patches of dirt using the water of Lake Texcoco to farm small-scale crops for minor sustenance for the city. Again, a major innovation that essentially creates fertile land where there was previously none. Because of all these innovations, Tenochtitlan became a very bustling and populous city. You can see an artist's rendition of it in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Again, it's a city with people who have jobs, an economy, different social classes, very much like a bustling city we have today. And in the center of the city stood Temple Mayor, a 170-foot temple to the gods overseeing the entire city. It's almost metaphorical that Temple Mayor sits at the heart of the city and is the center of everyday life, just like religion is at the center of everyday life for the Aztecs themselves. However, the Aztecs weren't always so powerful. Between the 1370s and 1420s, the Aztecs were actually controlled by other groups of people in the Mexican basin. However, through a series of alliances, or treaties, and assassinations, which basically means political killings, the Aztecs were able to gain control of the entire region. Alliances and assassinations, making treaties with other people and killing the right people, helped the Aztecs develop and really control their region of Mexico. And with Tenochtitlan as the capital, it became the most powerful urban area in the New World at this time. But there were four main reasons why the Aztecs were able to maintain control of their empire. First, they had a very strong army. We know that they had 200,000 people in one city alone, so not only was their army very advanced, but it was also very large. The Aztecs also had extreme wealth, both from conquering nearby villages and peoples, but also the fact that they had a lot of gold in Mexico as well, which would actually become a problem for them in the coming years. One other understated reason why they became so powerful was their military intelligence. In a word, this means that they had lots of spies. This is important because if there was a nearby village planning an uprising, a spy could easily go back and tell the emperor that this was going to happen, and the emperor can send a strong army, his strong army, back to that village and squelch any rebellion. So having spies throughout the empire was a great way of maintaining control of it. Fourth and finally, the Aztecs had a powerful tribute system. Essentially what would happen was after a strong army destroyed, conquered another village and was now under Aztec control, the Aztecs would take the prisoners of war that they captured from the other side and they would sacrifice those prisoners to the gods. Again, that's a kind of a scary thought if you were opposing the Aztecs, so a lot of people just joined them because they did not want to be sacrificed. But being able to tribute their prisoners to the gods was definitely formidable, and it's through these four important ways that the Aztecs maintained their empire, so we definitely have to know these four. By the 1500s, the Aztecs had pretty much conquered all of the Mexican basin. Their center at Tenochtitlan, they were able to expand out from there, and as a result, they created a lot of tributary states where not only would they receive crops and other resources, but they would also maintain control by essentially forcing these other people to give tribute to the Aztecs themselves. They would give these crops and say, please don't attack us, we are willing to work with you. Here's some crops because we know you guys don't have fertile soil. but we just don't want to be attacked by your large army. So we'll listen to you and we'll listen to your laws. Please take our crops so that you don't kill us. And because of this, the Aztecs became really, really, really powerful by the year 1500. So within 200 short years, the Aztecs went from essentially the Mexica traveling through Mexico to being the most powerful empire in the New World. If any of this confuses you, make sure you go back and look at the rest of the presentation. But if you think you've got it down perfect, quiz yourself with these 3 questions. If you could answer these 3 questions without looking back at your notes, then you're good to go. Until next time, have a nice day.